Hey, thanks, Edward, for joining us to talk about your startup journey and tell us the story. Hatch Storytellers. Why don't we start with getting to know you a little bit, and can you tell me about your background and what you're working on, what problems are you trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks a lot for welcoming me and hosting me. So I come from a finance background. I used to work in mergers and acquisition in the technology sector.
Nice.
Before actually getting into blockchain. Started the first company in the financial derivative space. That's actually the opportunity to build decentralized financial products on the chain that brought me through blockchain. And from that point started coding and started actually to get more and more interested into the space and launched my own blockchain nodes to secure proof of stake networks.
Okay.
And this company is called POS Bakerz.
POS Bakerz, that's fantastic, right? So it's great to know you learned something in your financial background doing M&A, and you saw the opportunity with blockchain, right? It's the hottest topic out here, right? Everyone's talking about it, and there are a lot of new terms and technologies that are evolving, and people at times get confused. Like when I first heard about your company and I was reading about proof of stake, and I'm like, that's interesting. What does it mean, right? I'm sure there are people who probably have similar questions, right? What does it mean? How is it different from proof of work? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So actually, a lot of people who are familiar with blockchain got first familiar with proof of work consensus. Protocols such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, which are the most famous one, rely on this proof of work consensus, where actually you have a lot of computers, servers competing with each other to solve mathematical problems in order to determine who's going to be the next block producer, what's going to be the next block, and then add this block to the chain. So that's very consuming in processing power, and that led to the construction of a lot of mining farms, for example. I don't know if you've seen these videos in China with because people have to compete and they need to buy more resources and have more servers, and that's that's very polluting. That uses a lot of energy, and the whole blockchain community thought about another system which is called proof of stake, and there are other consensus methods as well, but I think this one is the second largest one. And with proof of stake, actually, who's gonna get the right to produce the next block or to verify a block is based on the stake that you have in the network. That's how much token you own. And this align incentives as well, because if you own tokens, you do not want to double sign or double produce a block or try to attack the network, because these tokens otherwise are going to lose in value. So that's how proof of stake came into the space, and our job is to run this proof of stake infrastructure and to receive delegations from people who have a stake but do not have the infrastructure to secure the network.
I see. So that's an interesting place. Like, if I have to summarize, the proof of work was very heavily biased towards people with a lot of power and compute capacity to very few individuals who will come out and can essentially decide not the fate, but the future of the chain in a way, and it's heavily one-sided. But with the stake, it's like you own the coin, right? There's something a bit of that you actually own. You have a big stake in it, so the idea behind compromising the chain is less appealing, right? And you're essentially being sort of fair to people who are part of the system and giving them a right and a great opportunity to move forward. Is that a right summary?
Yeah, and to complete, it also uses way less power than proof of work.
That's the plus, yes?
Yeah, for example, ourselves, we're one of the largest validator on some of these proof of stake networks. And we just need a couple of servers, like just a secure architecture with a couple of servers versus tons of mining farms in the case of proof of work.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, so when you say we just need a few servers. Like, how does this process work? Like, when somebody's trying to write a next block, like, how the process work? How do they come to your system? And what is the logic behind selling this as a service or being the authority that helps validate it?
So typically, a client of our service would be a token holder who has some tokens in one of these proof of stake protocols, such as Tezos or Cosmos, and they would discover about us through the content that we've made, try to be very educative, or through some common block explorer, or through some wallet in which we integrate, such as Trust Wallet, and then they would delegate to us. So they would make an on-chain transaction, sending their voting power to us. So they're not sending their tokens. We're not custodians.
Right.
They just send their voting power, and this voting power comes to add up to our stack. And thanks to this, it increases the overall voting power of our validator and increases the chance that we have to validate the next block or verify a block. And then we redistribute the interest coming from this new block, from this inflation, to our clients.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That also tells me the reliability of your platform is super critical, right? It needs to be up and running almost all the time, and so that people are able to submit the stakes in a right possible way and nothing getting over it. So can you talk about that, the importance of reliability, and how you're trying to solve for that, and how Hatch, being part of Hatch, has helped you out?
Yeah, sure. So we aim for 99% of reliability, uptime, even 100.
Right.
So we first started with a few droplets. But we then learned that we had to improve, like as our role was becoming more key into some protocols, and we had this long-term vision of securing a lot of these protocols. We decided to improve. And what we built is what is often called a Sentry node architecture. So how does it work? Technically, we have a server, like a bare metal server, that is in charge of the validation work. And then we put in place all these Sentry nodes in different regions, which are just nodes that, like droplets, that keep in sync with the blockchain and communicate in private mode with our validator. And that's where DigitalOcean and Hatch really helped us, because you guys have cloud servers all over the world. So basically we put our sentries in different regions, and then we use a load balancer to communicate with the validator. And we were also able to multiply our experiences in test environments on multiple protocols, and sometimes even support tiny protocols from the ground up by running an infrastructure, helping them to also build their protocol, test their protocol, and ourselves to test our infrastructure.
That is awesome, and it's so satisfying to know that you're making a bet on a DO, and it's living up to your expectations. The reliability of the infrastructure, is helping you grow as well in that way. So that's super exciting to hear as well, right? Let's change the gears a little bit, and I would definitely love to learn more about how you got started. You told me about your finance background, and that's where you got the motivation, but there has to be a moment where you thought, like, how did this project started, right? Was it like just one day, this is what I'm going to work on, or tell me more?
It started, so initially, I was building these financial derivatives on the blockchain. I was learning Solidity, building smart contracts, a bit like some other providers can do, like a token sets, like that's what I was building. And we wanted this product to be we still want this product to be for institutional clients.
I see.
And in Europe, to do that, we would need these products to be traded on a regulated platform. So we also decided to build our own exchange.
Nice.
Yeah. But when you run your own exchange, well, you can rely on some very good like clients, and blockchain endpoints provider, or you can also run your own nodes, and that's where I started experimenting, running my own nodes. And I'm a token holder myself of some proof of stake tokens, so I decided with some friends to run our own nodes, and that's how we started. Yeah,
that's awesome, right? So it's like, you know, you're trying to solve a problem for yourself, and then you realize it's a much bigger opportunity, right? Yeah. There are people like you who are actually struggling with the same concept, and there's a notion that we need to solve this for the ecosystem as a whole. Like it sounds like it's something that you started probably over the weekend or two, and like, you know, let me see where I go from here, and then, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I really love it. It's at the crossroad between finance, because at the end we're offering some kind of fixed income project. We're enabling, you know, token holders to earn the inflation of this protocol, and also, you know, tech and cybersecurity and blockchain, and that's a very interesting word that's creating itself.
Definitely, you're in the right place at the right time. Like, you know, there's a lot of buzz around this. And that's exciting, right? You briefly talked about, you know, you started working on this with your friends, right? So I'm assuming that they are part of your team now, right? Can you talk a little bit about your team, how big it is, and you know, how do you work?
Right now we're still a small team. We're a team of 5. Okay. We're completely remote.
Oh, nice.
So there's one of us in New York at the moment. Before he was in London with me. Now we're 2 in Portugal, actually. Okay. There's one in Paris, and there's also one in the Philippines.
Nice. And you guys met through this common problem that you were trying to solve, or you knew them from?
We knew each other from before.
Okay, great. So isn't this?
We were sharing the same passion and, you know, entrepreneurial spirit, and although we were all in different countries, we quickly reconnected around this project.
I can totally see it. Like when you work with your friends, right, and work with the people that you grew up with, like, then it doesn't feel like work, right? It sounds like a more fun project, you know, trying to solve something together. There's a chemistry between you all. So I think, you know, that's probably, I'm assuming that's probably a biggest reason for success that you guys have had so far.
Yeah, I think we're each other. We're here pushing each other's up and to get better, and pushing the company to get better. And that, you know, we started as a small weekend project, but we were sharing the same passion, and, you know, when one is demotivated, the others are here to bring the motivation up. And you know, startup life sometimes it can be hard. Like
talking about startup life, right? You know, and I did a little bit of background research on you and whatnot. It sounds like, you know, you probably might be running multiple, at least couple of startups, right, at the same time, and trying to solve different problems in a different domains, or maybe same domains. Can you talk a little bit about like how's that experience has been?
Well, so the 2 startups have a lot of synergies with each other, so I think it makes it kind of easier in a way, but it's very time consuming, it's very intense, need to travel a bit, and also, you know, you sleep a bit less. And,
So yeah, that's the people side of challenges, right? In startup, yes, you know, you obviously sleep less, right? Because it's something that you're creating, you feel like it's your baby, right? You know, the idea that you've been working on throughout the day doesn't strike, it strikes probably in the middle of a night, right? And you wake up and like, you know, I know how to solve this, right? And you start coding, I guess. So now I can relate to that, right? And I think that's the fascinating piece, as well as the biggest toll that it takes on you as an individual as well. Tell me more about the technology challenges that you face, right, while building this product. You know, it's a pretty new technology. A lot of things are evolving, right? There are concerns around security, right? Doing things at scale, you know, building a great, larger available infrastructure, right? I'm pretty sure there are some scenarios or times when you hit the roadblock and thinking to yourself, you know, boy, am I on the right track, right?
Yeah. So actually, one of the technology challenges we faced is this one I mentioned before. You know, building this reliable cloud-centric node architecture, where we had to, you know, run these Sentry nodes connected to the validator node in private mode with a good firewall setup, and also, you know, build redundancy at the validator level. We also had, you know, to leverage and build, you know, good monitoring tools, because we want to know, you know, what's happening with each of the server at like 24/7.
Yeah.
We need notifications on Slack, on text messages, everywhere. If anything goes wrong, would it be the bandwidth, or if one is a bit lagging in terms of block level,
right.
And we need to quickly be able to solve these issues. So this was one of the technology challenges, and the other one was that as these blockchains start to grow, they start to use more data within the servers, and we were able to leverage on tools such as block storage to add more block storage and actually increase the size of the overall SSD of the server be able to scale the servers without having to spin up a new server and interrupt the whole activity, which needs to be up 100% of the time.
Right, so yeah, we briefly talked about some of the technology challenges that you had to face when building the platform out, right? Let's talk a little bit about security, right? Being in a proof of stake, I'm assuming that it will be a little harder for somebody to manipulate the system at a bad block, because you would probably have to have a larger stake into the currency that you're trying to go after and whatnot. Yeah. Like, have you had any incident or scenarios where you saw that people were trying to rig the system, or probably when the currency is growing and it was pretty easy to manipulate? Is it something that you can talk about, or the system takes care of itself?
Well, in mainnet, I did not have such experience yet, but we had a funny one in a testnet environment, where basically a couple of validators were working on the testnet with a lot of voting power, each of them, but not enough to rig the system. Decided to actually build a cartel.
There you go. See,
that's what testnets are for. They're meant to have fun and break stuff, and tokens are worth nothing on testnets. But yeah, it was a funny experience. So they basically built a cartel and rigged the whole blockchain, to which other people responded and decided to fork the blockchain.
I see.
And then run without this cartel on another fork. But
that's interesting. Like, and I'm sure this is not the end of it, right? As the technology evolves, as more and more people get involved in this process, probably we're gonna see. Well, not so creative, but random ways of trying to rig the system, right? And that probably could be one of the challenges as a founder to keep an eye on, right? And learn from the patterns, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's more that, being a validator and validating blocks, that, in these proof of stake networks, very often network operators, they also have governance rights based on how much voting power has been delegated to them. So I think there's going to be some interesting governance topics coming among these communities in the blockchain space. Probably we're going to see emerge parties or lobbyists trying to influence some of these political decisions. Even though code is low, people have the opportunity now to vote on a new piece of code and change the parameters of the network.
That's fascinating to hear, right? So, just following through on that topic, okay, so you touched on a couple of points that are fundamental to the success of not just the company, but the blockchain ecosystem as whole, right? How do the governments around the world support the technology, right? What innovations or what laws will come in to protect the people who are part of the system and whatnot? What's your thought process? What do you think where this whole thing is going, right? Are we talking about everybody dealing with smart contracts and a cryptocurrency in 2 years from now, 5 years, 10 years? What that future is going to look like?
I think that future is coming. That's the vision we have. That definitely cryptocurrency is going to move towards mass adoption. It's going to take some time. There's still a lot of challenges, in terms of regulation, but also in terms of UX, like user experience. If you're not part of the niche, sometimes these products are not the easiest one to use. So mass adoption is gonna come, and then there's gonna be, I think, not one blockchain to rule them all, but we're gonna see a lot of blockchain networks adapt to specific applications. So there'll be, big public blockchains, there'll be probably some company consortium blockchains. Probably we'll see government issued cryptocurrencies on government blockchains.
That's nice, yeah.
And and probably at this point, the regulation will be more favorable. Engineers will have done their user experience improvements, and we'll be able to see some kind of mass adoption of cryptocurrencies.
That's awesome to hear. I know, because there's always this topic being talked about on news media and whatnot, right? And then there are pundits coming over, and somebody just keeps on claiming like, Bitcoin has won the war, right? And from what I'm hearing from you, that doesn't sound like the case, right? It was way too early in the game to declare that one currency took over and that's the de facto standard. The opportunity in front of us is probably gigantic, right?
Well, at the moment, for example, Bitcoin is kind of the store of, it took over as a store of value within the blockchain space. I think it holds about 60% of the total market cap of cryptocurrencies. But there's definitely going to be more chains emerging. There's going to be more cryptocurrencies emerging. There's going to be a lot of chains that will be private, and we have a lot of actually cloud providers starting to offer spin up your blockchain solution.
Right.
I think this will be adapted to specific problems.
I see. So where do you see the biggest opportunity for not only your company, but the problem that you guys are trying to solve? Like, is it going to be in a private blockchain? Is it going to be public? Or it's going to be hybrid? Like, where's the immediate opportunity, and where, the other founders who are listening to this and are looking for inspiration to invest or go in one direction, what would that be?
So right now, our sales, we mostly look at public blockchains. And we look at, we are very interested in these public blockchains that have interconnectivity component, which are also called networking protocols. These blockchains have actually the ability to exchange value, or in some cases messages and data with other chains that are built on the same standard, or that have some kind of bridge to communicate with these chains. And I think these blockchains probably they won't be the one that rule them all, but they will be able to connect in the future, because now blockchain has been very siloed. Like if you have Bitcoin, you can't interact with the Ethereum DeFi network. You need some kind of ERC20 or Ethereum itself. And I think in the future, they'll be able to connect, and you'll be able to exchange value and data between chains, and will make it much smoother for the end user.
Right. And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing from you, like the technology innovation is so disruptive that things are growing organically like weeds, right? Everything is going in a different direction and whatnot, but there will be a point in time where bringing them together or allowing them to connect to each other and communicate, that's probably a much bigger opportunity in market, or probably a problem to be solved than fixing things in pockets and silo, like you said right now. Yeah. So that's again super fascinating to hear, folks investing in spaces that are as complex as this, but they are the future, right? So I'm probably going to ask you one, since we've been talking about some of the thought leadership that you can provide back to the community and a direction that you can give, I'm tempted to ask this question. What do you think about Libra? What is the future?
Well, Libra was a very interesting initiative. Libra might have been an answer to some of the mass adoption problem and user experience problem, because it's very simple to use cryptocurrencies. They were also, there was this Calibra wallet that is not a custodial wallet, but that would insure the funds of its users. So all these kind of things makes it very easy for the user, plus leveraging on the user base of Facebook and other partners would have been a great opportunity for quickly having a critical mass of user. I also like the fact that it wasn't a speculative kind of cryptocurrency, but more like a stable coin backed by different government issued currencies. It's easier for people to transact with actually a currency that doesn't change 20% in value during the same day. So all these were good pluses. Then in terms of decentralization, it wasn't that bad actually. Like we had 100 partners. Each were supposed to have 1% of voting rights in the network. I think this initiative was good, and gonna keep seeing more initiatives like that. There's actually a group right now that decided to fork Libra and launch Open Libra. So kind of a more open source kind of Libra where anybody is free to join and you don't have to apply and have this big Fortune 500 brand in order to be accepted. And we definitely need more initiatives like this one that can make it easier for the end user. I think what's important at the end is the end user.
Exactly, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So I think for what I'm hearing from you is every time you see sort of a pushback and a lot of noise being built around something new and disruptive as that coming out, is actually a good sign. That means you're doing something right, and that's making people uncomfortable, and that's a path to learn and grow. And so at the end of the day, like you said, none of us know what the future for Libra or any of this is gonna look like, but a lot of good things gonna come out, right? Because people will try and identify the problems and solve them in the right possible way.
I think at the end, people, they just want to be connected with each other wherever they are in the world, to transact with each other, to exchange data, to trust each other without unnecessary intermediaries or third parties. And that's what the ecosystem is working on.
Exactly. Now that's great to hear. Right? Hey, listen, you've one of the individuals who literally followed his passion, right, and then turned a weekend hobby project into something bigger and solving a bigger problems and whatnot, right? Are there any few learnings or advices that you would like to give back to the community, like the people who are listening to us and trying to look for an inspiration? What are a couple of things that you would say?
So keep learning. Always keep learning.
Always keep learning. Yes, that's a great advice, right? Learn it all, then know it all, right? That's where people usually fail when they think that they know everything versus trying to learn and absorb. So that's probably fantastic advice, right? And then stick to your passion, probably, yeah? Right? I guess, running a couple of startups at the same time and trying to solve multiple problems is no joke, right? So that's pretty humbling in a way to hear. And some of the problems that you're trying to solve are really difficult, but I think those are the ones that we need to solve for all of us to get better as a society and go from there, right? So that's awesome. Yeah. Let me ask again some few more questions around on the personal note, right? So obviously, you found your passion, you worked on that. There were a lot of sources of inspiration that you found from within, from your friends that you worked together, right? Which is great. Are there any individuals that you regard the most, or would like to follow, or would like to learn or follow their path?
Well, there are two individuals I really like. So first one, I think we all love him, Elon Musk.
Yes.
Trying to put people on Mars, running multiple visionary businesses at the same time. So a lot to learn from him. And there's another individual I really like, Yvon Chouinard. I don't know if you know him.
No, tell me more.
Founder of Patagonia.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, and the culture he managed to establish within the company, the good work-life balance for his employees, and this culture of doing good and having a good impact in the world, a positive impact. I think that's something great as well.
That's awesome, right? So if I have to take away a couple of points from that, like Elon Musk, right? You totally see or love to follow an individual who likes to think big. The rest of the people or population probably end up thinking that's crazy, right? But he's looking at problems from a different perspective and have a much bigger picture and try and solve problems that will have a large and a long-lasting impact, right? And the other Patagonian side of things, you're saying, there is an opportunity for all of us to lead with people first, right? Invest in your people, right? human capital.
Human capital
is the super most powerful things, because all these things around us that have been built, all the problems that have been solved, guess who solved them? People, right?
Yeah. And at the end, it's for the people.
Yes, yes. So I think those are great philosophies to have when you're building something new, right? And trying to solve difficult problems that yourself is involved with. So that's super amazing to hear. Right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
it's been
a lot.
a pleasure. Thank
Pleasure.
you.